Road to the Moon. A Great Occult Story. By Dr. George W. Carey. This story contains the omitted part of the original manuscript. Published by the Chemistry of Life Company, Los Angeles, California. The Library, Brigham Young University, Provo, Utah. Editorial notes of the Story of the Moon. By Thomas W. Woodrow, editor of Woodrow's Magazine. The story contains the following allegations of supposed facts. 1. The planet on which we live is Mother Earth, and mother to all the planets. All planets are born of the sexual union of Sun and Earth. 2. The Moon is a baby planet in the period of gestation, not born yet, and still connected to Mother Earth by umbilical cord, said to be the road to the Moon, and recognized by astronomers as a magnetic or electric cord, which holds Moon to Earth fast with one side only exposed to view. 3. The period of gestation of a planet is 26,400 years, during which solar system swings around the mighty circle of the zodiac, thus remaining in each of the 12 signs 2,200 years. When Earth enters the sign Scorpio, which represents the sexual functions of the grand man of heaven, she gives birth to a new planet. 4. The Moon is the 8th planet to be born and will not break the umbilical cord and become free till about the year 1945. For 26,000 years, the baby planet is nourished in the womb of Earth, and then comes the cataclysmal shock that throws the new world 240,000 miles into space, and also tips the Earth to a different angle. 5. There are 4 more planets yet to be born, making 12 in all, 1 for each of the 12 signs of the zodiac. 6. The womb of Earth is located at the South Pole and is 2,000 miles in diameter. The author of the story claims to have gone there and made the journey to the Moon on the cord which connects Moon to Earth, which he calls Road to Moon. Please note, in the story the author gives precise statement of his exact location, on the shore of the Weddell Sea, South Pole, where he wrote the account of his journey from that place to Moon. 7. The manuscript for the story was written as claimed by the author at the South Pole and kept till he found the person who is appointed to give the story publication, that person to have the same mystical birthday, September 7th. Dr. Carey being born on a September 7th, the story was placed in his hands, and it is a peculiar fact that on September 7th following, the author disappeared suddenly and mysteriously from mortal sight. No one saw him go or knew where he went. He claimed to know the process of transmuting the physical body into the spiritual. These are only a few of the startling allegations of the story. We give this story without implying that we believe it, or alleging that we deny it. There are truths that cannot be apprehended and declared by the normal mind and only can be revealed through what might be called the supernormal rather than the abnormal mind. We know so little of the Moon we are not prepared to deny the story. From what little we can judge by appearance and from what we know of spiritual phenomena and laws, we accept the story as interesting and worthy of consideration. Road to Moon. That the Moon is attached to the Earth by a magnetic cord is asserted by Hicks, the great astronomer, and other scientists and astronomers. It is contended that this accounts for the Moon being held with only one side exposed to view. We have just received this letter postscript from Dr. Carey. In your editorial notes, please state that astronomer Hicks stated in his almanac that Moon was attached to Earth by an electric cord which holds one side of Moon always toward Earth. Therefore, the story has a scientific base. Haste, Carey. Please read the story without prejudice or prejudgment and let us know what you think of it. Road to the Moon. A Great Occult Story. Is it possible that an insane man may see and express a great truth? Is it necessary to become insane in order that we may cognize the esoteric reality? Do you believe that I am insane? Do you realize that there are many simple problems that will never be solved by so-called sane persons? The above questions, and a dozen more along the same line, were hurled at me in rapid succession by the Moon Explorer, as he persisted in calling himself. During the summer of 1904, I was a traveling salesman for a St. Louis pharmacy company. A business engagement called me to Portland, Maine. One evening I took a trolley ride out to the government fortifications on the bay. I wore my Grand Army button, and was admitted to the Army parade ground, although it was not Visitors' Day. The officer, Major Lincoln, was an affable and altogether agreeable host. After dress parade, we strolled through the fortifications and talked on many different subjects. I found that the Major was quite enthusiastic on the subject of astrology and astronomy, and especially interested, at that particular moment, in everything pertaining to the moon. It was the evening of the full moon in July, on Moon's Day too, and curiously enough, in a lunar hour. And Major Lincoln remarked, "In a few minutes, the moon will arise as she has for untold ages, so far as we know, and yet with all our boasted wisdom, with our telescopes, and spectroscopes, and marvelous instruments of precision for measuring, weighing, and analyzing, we know almost absolutely nothing about the moon. Why, don't you know," he continued, "that one of our most noted astronomers who enjoys the privilege of looking at the moon through a 40-inch telescope was recently quoted as saying, 'I know nothing about the moon, its degree of density, weight, real size, as only one side is ever seen, nor how it came to be where it is, how long it has been there, nor what office it fills in the solar system.' Some acknowledgement that, eh?" The Major leaned over and rested his elbows on one of the mighty guns that lie open-throated towards the incoming tides, ever ready to speak the eloquent language of war, and fixed his eyes on the orb of night, now an hour high. As I studied his features, I thought, what a shame that a man of so finely balanced head and physique, or any image of God for that matter, should have to devote his life to the brutal, senseless, and altogether unnecessary business of war. After a minute or two, Major Lincoln consulted his watch, and smilingly remarked, "We must go outside or the guard will run us in, for it will soon be 9 o'clock. Taps." As we walked out, I asked the Major if he thought the moon problem would ever be solved. "I do not know," he answered gravely, "but we have a very strange specimen of the genus scientific hobo rara, here. Commonly defined, tramp in ordinary, who says he knows all about the moon. He even claims that he has been there, and says that he is the pioneer moon explorer. In fact, he declares that there is a good road to the moon." I laughed as I answered carelessly, "Why don't you have him locked up? He is evidently loony." "Just my idea," replied the Major, though I noticed he had no answering smile for my bantering tone and rather winced at the attempted pleasantry. After a pause, he added, seriously, "There is a mystery about the fellow I cannot fathom. Insane, of course. There's no question about that, but well, at any rate, I would like to have you meet him. He lives in that house tent over there," pointing to the tent about 100 yards away, "and he has made himself very useful to me in many ways. I have been glad to have him remain. He's quite harmless, I assure you. His principal hobby now is to find a person who was born on his birthday, September 7th. "Well," I remarked, "perhaps he will find in me the fellow he is looking for. My mother seems to rather cling to the idea that I was born on September 7th. "By Jove!" exclaimed the Major, "is that a fact? How remarkable! Come. You must see him at once." As taps were then heard for lights out, the Major added, "The last car leaves for the city at 10, so you will have a full hour to interview Moon Explorer. By the way, he never says the moon." We hurried over to the tent, and found the explorer of Luna lying on the grass outside the tent, gazing at the moon. The Major said to him, "This gentleman tells me that he was born September 7th. I will leave him with you, as I must return to the barracks." Then, bidding me good night, after a warm invitation to call again, he walked rapidly away. Moon Explorer sprang up quickly and gripped both my hands in his, gazing eagerly into my eyes, as one would search their depths for hidden treasure. Then, With a sigh of relief and gratification, he said, "I believe you. You look it. Rather tall, slim, light muscles, full of fire and vim and energy, wiry, alert, much like myself. Yes, you certainly must have been born on September 7th. I told him that I must return to Portland on the 10 o'clock car and that our visit must therefore be brief. "True," he replied, "and as Virgo people have the faculty of acting quickly, doing it now. I will proceed to business, for business it is, my friend, and such as you will certainly be fascinated by. When Mercury, the lord of our lives, lured you to this planet to be like all of his children, a messenger of the gods, he had a mission for you to perform, and for that reason chose the mystic 7th, to be your natal day. Do you understand?" I was plainly mystified and shook my head with such an air of bewilderment that he hastened to add, "Never mind. If not now, very soon. No son of Mercury can sleep long." He went into the tent house and returned with a package carefully tied in oilcloth. "Here," he said, "is a manuscript in which is recorded the most wonderful event the world has ever known. There is a road to Moon. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't, but it's an actual demonstrable fact that Moon is attached to Earth by an umbilical cord. Earth is the uterus, the divine womb, of the solar system. Earth is the mother of planets. Sun, Sol, or Sol, the father. Moon is a baby planet, not yet fully born, still held by the umbilical cord, while Earth as a whole may be called the womb or uterus of, but no more now. You will soon know all. Goodbye." I caught the car and returned to my hotel. I must confess that my experience during the 4 hours from 6 to 10 p.m. had nearly upset my nerves. I went out to a coffee house and called for a pot of coffee with a stick in it, returning to my room at 11 p.m. determined to read that manuscript if I had to remain awake until morning. I hastily untied the strings about the oilcloth and unrolled 20 sheets of writing paper completely filled with illustrations and writings. The first picture represented the South Pole region of Earth as a vast circular matrix, the size of the Moon 2,000 miles in diameter, and in the center a mighty mountain reaching into the heavens 50 or 60 miles, growing dimmer and more transparent until it seemed to melt in air. This mountain was labeled, "The umbilical cord from Mother Earth to Child Moon." The following is a verbatim copy of the strange manuscript. "On the shore of the Weddell Sea, South Pole, womb of Earth, latitude 73 degrees, 20 minutes south. Longitude 146 degrees east. I, Nathan Boswell, record the following facts. At the age of 20, I became engaged to be married to a girl of 17, whose parents resided in Virginia. Her name was Endelia Fairchilds. Endelia's father was a cotton merchant, and during the summer of 1884 he visited New Orleans on business in company with his wife and Endelia. Yellow fever broke out while the Fairchilds were in the city, and Endelia was stricken with the dread scourge and 3 days thereafter died. It was about 2 a.m. on August 28 that Endelia's spirit left its body. I was at that time a clerk in a wholesale grocery store in Baltimore. At 12 o'clock that night, I finished writing a letter to Endelia in which I expressed great anxiety for her health. I had grave misgivings about the trip from the time she informed me that she contemplated taking the journey with her parents. As I was sealing the letter, I felt that it would be useless to mail it. There was a letter drop box in the hall, but I retired leaving the letter on my writing table. At about 4 a.m. I was awakened by a voice calling my name, Nat. My name is Nathan. The voice repeated the name several times, until I finally realized that it was Endelia calling to me. I answered, "Where are you, and what do you want?" The answer came. "I have passed from Earth life and shall not see you again until you join me at the South Pole on your journey to Moon. Go to the South Pole, and you will make a great discovery. I will guide you to the wonderful region the womb of Earth, and you will then be shown the road to Moon. You will be instructed in the process of transmuting matter from the third-dimensional motion to the fourth-dimensional rate, and during the time required, you will be able to visit Moon. You will then return and find one born on the same mystic day as yourself who will publish the facts about the great discovery that will revolutionize the science of the world, after which you will transmute your physical body into a spiritual body and join me. And now, after a wonderful journey, I am here near the umbilical cord of Moon. Endelia's spirit is with me and guides me on my way to Moon. 2 paragraphs omitted here for good reason. Let no one ever dare to penetrate this holy of holies until he fully realizes the sacredness of motherhood. I stand in the holy presence of the divine creative mother principle and right that which Earth's inhabitants must finally know, but which they will reject and scoff at until the great cataclysm occurs. About the year 1945, that will break the umbilical cord, and set Moon free. I am admitted to this sacred region during the year 1884. I was fitted for the ordeal by the teachings of Endelia, who can appear in material garb, and disappear at will. She has attained and understands the law of coefficiency of refraction. Those who care to study this alchemical phase of esoteric philosophy will find much help in Scientific Romances, by C. H. Hinton B. A. My teacher instructed me in the mysteries of birth of planets. All planets are born of the sexual union of Sun and Firth. Here I omit several sentences on account of postal laws, although the world ought to know what they disclose. Vibrations of the highly vitalized and spiritualized essence of Sun's rays upon the inner surface of the vast matrix that constitutes the unknown region about the so-called South Pole impregnates the mother substance concentrated there, and the fetus of a planet is generated. In this realm of God's creative compounds, the sweetest perfumes fill the air, a holy calm prevails, and the regenerated senses taste ambrosia and hear the deep, subtle, heavenly tones of music likened to nothing except the fingers of the Divine Mother touching the keys of energy. For 26,000 years, the baby planet is nourished in the womb of Earth, and then comes the cataclysmal shock that throws the new world 240,000 miles into space, and also tips the Earth at a different angle. The umbilical cord holds until Earth again becomes impregnated with solar energy, then the cord breaks, and Earth rights itself and remains until the travail of another birth. Between the dates of 1940 and 1945, Moon will break away from Mother Earth and take its place as the planet that will govern the constellation, or zodiacal sign, Aries. My teacher conducted me to Moon. We ascended the umbilical mountain, the navel of Mother Earth, by means of a car constructed of a semi-transparent material that she called coefficient of refraction. I am scarcely able to define that term. If you ask a dozen different scientists to define specific gravity, you may be surprised to learn that few, if any, can give a good definition of the term, although each one of the dozen may really know when to use the words and how to apply them. If I say that coefficient of refraction means a substance containing the minimum amount of Mars elements to the maximum amount of Venus, Uranus, and Neptune, thus rendering it transparent, the astrologer who reads this will get some idea of its meaning. After we had ascended about 50 miles, the substance of the mountain disappeared, and we did not seem to be going up, but simply forward on a level. While my feet seemed to tread on a substance if I stepped out of the car. I could not see anything at all seemed like air. Endelia explained that while I was changed in the coefficiency of refraction in regard to muscle and bone tissue, I still had earth density in relation to brain and nerves, which was necessary so long as I must return and dwell among men for a while. I lost all idea of the time, as soon as we entered upon the level, transparent road. But my teacher told me we were 12 hours, according to Earth time, making the journey to Moon. Moon is inhabited by spirits of just men made perfect who have passed from Earth since the birth of Moon. These souls will remain and be carried to the planetary angle of Aries, there to develop into Moon beings, as other souls have developed on Mars, Jupiter, and other planets. Germs of vegetation are everywhere, and the basis of a beautiful world was shown to me by my teacher. The dark side of Moon, so called, the side not seen by Earth beings, is a paradise of light and beauty, the nirvana of departed Earth souls, that is, those who have departed since the birth of Moon. When I asked how Earth would be lighted at night after Moon departed, she answered, "Earth will be lighted at night until another planet is born, the same as it now is in the dark of the moon, lighted by stars and planets only. Earth remains in perfect equilibrium after the departure of moon, until the birth of another planet. The alchemists, seers, sages and all the spiritually illumined ones who have filled their mission on Earth dwell now on moon. Their stay there is principally a condition of nirvana or rest, yet these spiritual adepts visit their Mother Earth at times and are the true causes behind all the real spiritual phenomena that manifests on the Earth plane. These teachers are now inspiring all advanced thinkers, all who write and talk for peace, brotherhood, and the cooperative commonwealth. The mighty pull of young planet Moon during the ages that it tugs and strains at the invisible umbilical cord causes it to swing to and fro across the equatorial line. In ancient times, Moon, or other planets before our Moon, were known as the Serpent, because their course was wavering or serpentine. This irregular motion is due to the resistance of Earth to the pull or strain of Moon, which causes spasmodic oscillations. In Isaiah, Matthew and other parts of the Bible, passages like the following are found. The earth shall be removed out of her place, and shall reel like a drunken man. And the moon shall not give her light. The solar system swings around the mighty circle of the zodiac in 26,400 years, thus remaining in each of the 12 signs 2,200 years. When Earth enters the sign Scorpio, which represents the sexual functions of the grand man of heaven, she gives birth to a new planet. Moon makes the 8th planet. There will be 4 more, thus making 12. 1 for each of the 12 signs of the zodiac. As I just said, the solar system remains 2,200 years in one sign. It entered Aquarius in 1900, and must pass through Capricorn and Sagittarius before reaching the celestial Scorpio on the regenerative plane. Scorpio becomes the white eagle, which will require about 6,600 years of Earth time. And then another child planet will be born. This will be the Christ child among planets, the regenerative child of that fluidic, etheric, electromagnetic substance which is to be the Redeemer, the saving force, the life-preserving elixir, the transforming vibratory influence of the universe. Earthquakes are earth spasms, vibrations, orgasms, caused by the descent of the sun's magnetic fluid, which enters Earth at the South Pole matrix. From now on, until Moon breaks away, these magnetic shocks will occur with increased frequency and violence. Sensual-minded people will be taken out of material expression in great numbers, but the pure in heart will survive. The climax of Earth throes will be reached during the year 1916, and those who survive the ordeal will live to see the beginning of the millennial reign of the Aquarian Age, the age of men and women. Having been taught the art of transmutation, I shall enter into the new rate of motion, the 4th dimension, and dwell on Moon until that divine child goes to its place in the cosmic cycle. Here the manuscript ended. Late in December of 1904, I visited Portland again, and called at the military barracks to see Major Lincoln and ask if Moon Explorer was still there. The Major informed me that the tramp had disappeared on September 7, the night of the full moon, and that no trace of him had yet been found. I often ask myself whether the manuscript was written by an insane man, or by one with method in his madness. Who answers? Dr. George W. Carey, Los Angeles, California. Substance of omitted paragraphs in Road to the Moon. Endelia in her spirit body informed me that before Uranus, son of heaven, in the Greek, passed out of Aquarius, sign of the Son of Man, in 1921, the physical regeneration of man would be taught to children in public schools. She said that the parables and allegories of the Bible and other ancient scriptures all referred to the mysteries of the human body, or the planetary angles, or angels, that impinge to form the body, thus let us make man. She said that Moses, Joshua, Israel, children, Nile, Red Sea, Nebo, Jordan, Jesus, Mary, and every so-called person in the record were simply impersonations of principles, the same as Santa Claus, Uncle Sam or John Bull. I have since verified many of the statements. Moses means drawn from the water fish, the regenerative life. Nile, arising in the mountains of the moon, and the overflow of which fertilizes the soil of Egypt, lower part of the human body was called Egypt by the Hebrews, corroborates the statement. Red Sea is another testimony. Moses died on Mount Nebo, which means understanding, and Joshua succeeded him. Joshua and Jesus are the same, written several thousand years apart in different languages. Joshua means God of salvation. The letters G, O, D, in Hebrew simply mean power, hence power of salvation from saliva, sal, salt, saving power of salt. Saliva saves the body by digesting food, and food is changed into force, which furnishes the fluids of the body from which the psychophysical germ or seed is born in Bethlehem that may redeem, if conserved and carried up to the pineal gland, the throne. This seed has the odor of fish, and Jesus is from ichthos, Greek for fish. Crossing Jordan and crucifixion is one and the same. As Moses and Joshua represent generative and regenerative, so does John the Baptist, who was beheaded so that one greater might succeed. Neither Jesus nor Joshua were married. In my kingdom there is no marrying, and Joshua the son of Nun must have been a fish, for Nun is the 14th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, meaning fish. Nuns do not marry. Now the Hebrew put fish in the feminine gender she, while the Greeks placed it in the masculine he, so we say he when referring to Jesus and she when speaking of a nun. The 14th letter of Hebrew alphabet is a character in the form of a fish. River Jordan is the nerve fluid or marrow of the spinal cord, which rises in the medulla oblongata and ends at the cauda equina, a thick salty sticky fluid, that the Hebrews call the Dead Sea. Synonyms of water of Jordan are Christ, an oil, and I-O-H-N, the formula of marrow. And the tree of life stood in the midst and bore 12 manner of fruits. At the solar plexus, where the pneuma gastric or vagus nerve, from vagrant a wanderer, commences to branch or wander, a son or seed is born, fruit of the tree, every month when the moon is in the sign that the sun was in at the birth of the individual. This is the Jesus born in Bethlehem, Beth or house. Lehem means bread. Any materialized substance is bread or dough or maso, Catholic Mass or Mason. Free, Freya, Masons and Catholics, still war over Maso and Mason. Nor none, fish added, caused the trouble. Thou shalt not eat, consume or waste of the fruit of the tree, or thou shalt surely die. The serpent, sexual desire on physical plane, said, Eat, thou shalt not die, but they ate and died, for sexual desire was a liar from the beginning. Jesus was baptized of John in Jordan, the fluids of the spinal cord, and then became Christ Jesus, who was crucified. The word Christ means an ointment or oil, a smear, paint or varnish is a smear that saves wood. The precious ointment of the Jordan saved or redeemed the germ, fish, and enabled it to rise after crucifixion and ascend to the throne, the pineal gland. There is no J in Greek, so John is ion or soul, which means the fluids of the body. When this is put on the germ it is Christed, hence Christ Jesus. There is no Savior for man except Christ Jesus and Him crucified. Crossed electrical wires set ablaze any inflammable substance near the cross. In Hebrew, crucifixion means to increase 1,000-fold. 2 nerve wires, Adi and Pingali, cross at the base of the brain in the medulla oblongata and terminate in the cerebellum. And they took him to Golgotha, which means the place of the skull, to crucify him. 2 nerves cross at the base of the skull in the medulla oblongata. In the chamber below the upper brain that contains the creative gray matter, there is an eyeball run by nerve wire from the pineal gland. This is the single eye which fills the whole body with light when the Christed germ is allowed to reach it, for it contains the elixir that gives dynamic force to the wire to light the inner eye. And the temple needs no sun by day nor moon by night, etc. The pineal gland is largely composed of mineral salts, called sand in the Greek, which must have cement, in order to be made rock. Hence Jesus said the foolish man built his house on sand and the wise man built his house on the rock, so the wise man must have saved the ointment that changes sand to rock. He that is born of God cannot sin, for this seed remaineth in him. The human body above the solar plexus is the kingdom of heaven. The head is Eden, and the body the Garden of Eden, and a river that flowed out of Eden to water the garden, thence is divided into 4 heads. The river that flowed out of Eden is the spinal cord, or river of Jordan. The 4 rivers are Pishon, a stream of urine, the second is Hiddekel, which means blood, the third is Gihon, meaning to gush, and is the intestinal tract. Euphrates, meaning good water, which is the nerve fluid. Jesus the Nazarene is cooked fish. Early Christians used fish as their symbol. The disciples were fishermen. Money for taxes was taken from a fish's mouth. God prepared a fish to swallow Jonah. Jonah means a dove. The storm was sex desire, which would have destroyed the psychic germ, which means dove. Spirit of God descending like a dove. So God, which means power, saved Jonah, dove, by keeping it in the fish 3 days, as in the New Testament version it was 3 days in the tomb, the cerebellum. Endelia told me not to think that regeneration was in any manner related to union or contact between male and female, but that each one singly and alone must work out their own salvation. Saliva. All sex reform deals with the way that seemeth right to a man, the end of which is death. Sin simply means to fall short of knowledge, hence I sin daily. Sin does not mean wrong or crime, but through the lack of knowledge we may commit crime. Born in sin and brought forth in iniquity, simply means unequal or 9 months in the womb, 3 months short of 12, the complete circle. 12 in Hebrew is circle, i.e., Jacob's 12 sons, the 12 zodiacal signs that rise in the east with every revolution of earth. To work out our salvation, or to regenerate, means that we must attain to knowledge that will enable us to cross the gap of sin, or drop into the gulf or grave, for the wages of sin is death. Whosoever believeth in me shall not perish. I can lay down my life and take it up again. All things I do ye shall do. Do you know any Christian that can do it? No. Then they are not Christians. Read what is said to the churches in Revelation. As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, that is, started to leave the Pharaohs or started away from the kingdom of earth to the promised land, the Father's kingdom in Eden, so shall the Son of Man be lifted up. When desire is centered in sex, the life force functions from below in the kingdom of earth, which is generation. The Kundalini force goes up and dominates the brain. When the saving germ has been lifted up, it draws all men up, or all other monthly fruit, and so emanates. The sexual plane. This is descending into hell to preach to souls in prison, and thus triumph over the carnal mind and destroys death. To him that overcometh, I will give to eat of the fruit of the tree of life, thus the last enemy to be overcome is death. The wages of sin is death. To overcome does not mean to do, but to cease from doing. Now, Nat, you must return to earth and make proficiency by saving the fruit that cometh in season. And you will then do as Jesus in the allegory did, who promised that we can do all the things that he did, and so transmute your body and join me on moon where work will be assigned us to do. Oh, death, where is thy sting? Oh, grave, where is thy victory? I have received hundreds of letters in which the writers believe that the story is scientific, although I wrote it as a story of the impossible. W. A. Redding, noted writer on Bible prophecies, wrote to me as follows. I have read The Road to the Moon with great interest. I believe every word of it. It is true. The end.